Talk now, though, to Trevor Kavanagh, political columnist at The Sun. Trevor, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I started the show this morning by saying there's not much going on in the world of politics today. You know, Rishi Sunak's been reduced to urging people to buy more fruit and vegetables from Britain. Apart from that, there's not an awful lot going on. But we discovered this story yesterday, and we found out that it's actually been passed in Parliament. This rather ludicrous, to me anyway, notion that if you are arrested by the police as an MP, you will now be excluded from the parliamentary estate, regardless of whether whatever you've been arrested for turns out to be bogus or turns out to be something of which you are completely innocent.
Yes, I think that the police are moving into politics, aren't they? And this gives them an entree which has never been available before, at least never used. And I think this is a problem right across the board, that whenever someone allegedly does something illegal, the police are called, the whistle's blown, and suddenly everything grinds to a halt and the parliamentary democracy system comes to a grinding halt.
Yeah, and I mean, the trouble is, as people have pointed out to me today on various different message boards, you know, protection is now gone so far the other way for people who make these allegations that the person who is, you know, is accused of something is immediately considered to be a pariah, and is immediately considered to be guilty, and is immediately considered to be somebody that must be sort of, you know, done away with.
Yes, the old system of innocent until proven guilty has gone by the board.
Right.
And the assumption, which is basically the social media Twitterati scheme of mob justice, is now in operation, where people decide, and not only decide, but the jury shouts its verdict over Twitter.
And it can't be good. I'm going to play you a little clip from yesterday. We spoke to a woman called Caroline Slocott, you're probably familiar with, former Private Secretary to Margaret Thatcher, former Private Secretary to John Major, but now Director of the think tank Civil Exchange. She made some quite extraordinary claims to me. Have a look at this.
In the House of Commons today, they've watered down the requirements to ban people, MPs, who've been alleged to have committed sexual...
Well, hang on. Well, then, there again, you're in an interesting area, aren't you? You're saying alleged. I mean, if somebody's alleged to have done something, that doesn't mean they've done it.
But they're going to, if they've been arrested, they're still going to be allowed to go into the House of Commons.
Well, you can be arrested for something that you're not guilty of.
Well, let me tell you this, in any other workplace in the country, that wouldn't be acceptable.
I'm not sure if that's true, because I think there are lots of situations, where people are accused of things, particularly in the modern world in which we live. Many people are accused of things of which they're not guilty. Well,
arrested by the police, I think that's quite a high bar. But it's
no, it isn't actually. I don't think it is. We've had cases of accusations made in the House of Commons. People were accused of rape. They were arrested by the police. The investigation went on for 3 years, and then they were cleared. Are you saying to me that that was fair for that person, for that individual? No, you can't go around suspending people or firing people on something which they are not proven to be guilty of.
About safety, isn't it? It's about people feeling safe.
Well, if people don't feel safe, that's a different issue. Ah, yes, the old I don't feel safe argument, which now seems to pervade certainly every single public sector office, Trevor, if not even some in the private sector as well.
Yes, it's now what you call rough justice. Anyone who thinks that someone else has done something, or even if they haven't and they've made it up, are automatically in the firing line and are judged guilty because someone's gossiped about them. Far too much use is made of parliamentary privilege these days, where people can... and we've seen this many times in relation to children, crimes against children, serious crimes where people have been accused of things which they weren't guilty of, and in other cases, people who were clearly guilty and later charged and convicted were not mentioned or fingered at all. So this is a chaotic system of justice where the police should go about their duty unhindered and do it properly.
Yes, indeed. But they seem absolutely sort of petrified and almost kind of sort of caught like rabbits in the headlights. They don't want to sort of pursue anybody too roughly in case they get accused of doing it wrong. I spoke to a police officer who rang in and said, look, sometimes we have to arrest people because that's simply the procedure by which we have to do the investigation. It doesn't necessarily mean anything more than that. It's almost like an administrative move, right? And so they take sometimes 2 to 3 years to work through one of these investigations. And meanwhile, somebody, particularly if they turn out not to be guilty of anything, have had a horrendous time.
That's right. And unless the police actually say that you're being arrested because we're considering a charge and that they put you on a caution, if they put you on a caution, that's a totally different situation. Effectively, they're saying there is a prima facie case against you. And it seems that Angela Rayner, for instance, is going to be arrested or at least interviewed under caution, which places her in a slightly different position to a totally innocent person who happens to walk into a police station to report a crime or have a crime reported against her. That raises the level. Just a simple arrest is a holding of someone while investigations are underway.
And doesn't it prove that all of those people in the Labour Party and their supporters who for weeks and weeks and weeks would have a go at anyone that suggested there might be some impropriety here by saying, oh, there's nothing to see here, there's no story, it's just cooked up by the Tory press. Well, really? Well, how come the police are investigating it then?
Well, I think this raises very, very big questions about how Labour will govern. If in opposition they refuse point blank to even look at the evidence against a person who has been accused of something, that again takes us into a different dimension. And I think that this obfuscation and deliberate blockage of investigation is ominous. I think it's something that is an indication of how they would operate in power.
Yes, indeed.
And that is an alarming situation.
And they did exactly the same thing, didn't they, yesterday with Natalie Elphicke, when it was reported in the Sunday Times that Natalie Elphicke has apparently had tried to influence the date of her husband's trial by getting in touch with a government minister. Now, the Labour Party came out and said, well, if it was such a serious matter, why didn't the Tories say something at the time? Well, that's not really the issue. As you say, surely the point would be, your first reaction would be as a Labour MP or a Labour leader, well, we may better check this out and find out. We shouldn't just go to Natalie Elphicke who says, oh, that didn't happen. You know, Rosie Duffield today is now saying there should be a proper investigation into it.
And she says that were it to have been a Conservative MP, which of course Natalie Elphicke was until last week, the Labour Party would be screaming for an inquiry and demanding that she be put in, suspended from the party until that investigation was complete.
Yeah. Absolutely right. One final thought from you, Trevor, if I may, on Nigel Farage. Let's have a look at what he said to Julie Hartley-Brewer yesterday about possibly having a future role in British politics.
And to be honest, I only stood one time for Parliament with any realistic chance. You know, in the early days of UKIP, the reason UKIP fought elections was to raise the issue. We were a campaign group that chose, you know, an issue campaign group that chose to use elections. Once I stood for Parliament seriously, and guess what? The Tories broke all electoral law. Their campaign agent got a suspended prison sentence. And so when you've seen the system cheat against you, the way they did against me, when you realise how difficult first past the post is, that's part of the calculation too. So look, I'm very lucky. I've got lots of choices. Life's going pretty well. You know, so these are very, very big decisions for me to make. But I accept the fact, you know, I can't keep teasing people.
Nigel Farage accepts the fact. I suspect, Trevor, that he's not going to stand for Parliament, certainly in this election. I don't think he wants to really return or go anywhere near the Tory party, do you?
I don't think so, Mike. And I think that Nigel Farage is basically a creative disruptor. And that's why he went into the Brexit campaign, which he believed in totally and devoutly and was successful on. He hasn't got an issue like that at the moment, except general grumpy dissatisfaction with everything the Tory stands for, but also everything Labour stands for. He's not an anarchist. And that's what I think Reform and these other jump-up or start-up political parties are. They're anarchic organisations which want to destroy rather than create, because the system simply won't allow them. Or even Reform with Nigel Farage would have difficulty in actually winning seats, although it might win one or two. The others, I mean, they're simply there to wreck things.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I suspect he may end up in America for a short spell, particularly if Donald Trump wins the presidential election, which I think is looking more and more certain as well, isn't it?
Yes, I think that despite the hideous stuff coming out of his trial, this is actually feeding the pro-Trump campaign. The bandwagon is rolling. And I don't think there are many people looking at Biden, especially in the current circumstances of Gaza and the way that he's handling international and domestic affairs, is thinking that he's a second-term president. So I think that Trump must have the wind in his sails. The pro-Trump bandwagon simply will not stop rolling.
No, he's absolutely right. Trevor, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Trevor Kavanagh, political columnist, of course, at The Sun.